Hello world, Julio here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at how we can replicate a portion of Apple's website. This will include the navigation as well as the first three sections. So for comparison, if we go onto Apple's website, you can see that even though everything is not pixel perfect, my version is still pretty similar. I'm also not going to add in the search bar animation that you see here on Apple's website. So maybe as a challenge, you could try testing out your skills by adding that in yourself. This will be fully responsive, so if we go into the responsive view and resize the window, you'll see that all the content is going to adapt. Finally, we get the mobile navigation, which also has a really nice animation. So if you guys are new to the channel and you want to see more videos like this one, please consider subscribing and turning on bell notifications. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video and found it useful, please give it a thumbs up. Also, be sure to check out my Instagram for weekly updates. I also have a Patreon account, so be sure to check that out. All the links are going to be in the description below. Now, let's jump right in. So as you guys can see, I've already set up the structure for this project, but if you guys want to follow along with me, I'll be placing a link in the description below with the starter files you see here. Now I'll just minimize this so that I can have my browser side by side. I'll start by using the header tag. Then I will have a div with the class of container. Inside of the container div, I will have the nav tag with the class of nav, followed by a UL with the class of nav list, as well as an additional class of nav list mobile. And the reason for this is because we're going to be using two different navigations. One will be shown on smaller devices, and the other one is going to be shown on larger screens. If you use emit to keep your code more organized and readable, you can generate a comment by adding to the end of your class the pipe as well as a C, and then pressing tab. And as you can see now, you have a comment at the end of the UL that indicates that this is where it ends. Then we're going to have an LI with the class of nav item. Inside of here, we're going to have a div with the class of mobile menu. And in here, we're going to be creating the hamburger menu, although Apple doesn't really use a hamburger menu, they just use two lines. So I guess we can't really call it that. But we're going to have a span with the class of line, as well as an additional class of line top. Now we can just go ahead and copy this and paste it down below. And the only thing we have to change is top to bottom. Then we can go underneath of the first LI and we'll have another nav item. And here we're going to have an anchor tag. This one will point to the index. And it's going to have a class of navlink as well as a class of navlink apple. The reason for this is because we're going to be using background images on the link itself so that we can generate the logos or the icons, we should say, for Apple, the VAC, and so on. Then we can just go ahead and copy this, paste it down below. We can get rid of the index and just replace it with a hash, and we can change Apple to bag. And that's pretty much the end of the mobile navigation. Now we can go underneath of the comment and we can start up with the next navigation, which is the one that's going to be for larger screens. And since we already have a basic structure, we can just go ahead and copy it and paste it down below. And what we can do now is just replace mobile with larger. And for the first nav item, we can just delete it. So this way we have the icon first, which is going to be the Apple logo. So once we have this, what we can do is add an additional class to the first nav item of nav item hidden. And that's because later on we don't want it to be showing. So once we do that, we can go ahead and basically just copy this, or we can just leave it as it is, and we can go up top and just make a few spaces, and we can just paste it right over here. And what we can do now is just delete this so that we only have the class of navlink, and what we can add here is just Mac. Now that we have this all set up, the other ones are going to be exactly the same. So the only thing we have to do is just paste it down below. One more time, we can change this one to iPad. Then again, this one will be for iPhone. The next one will be for, I believe it was the watch. Then the next one will be for TV. Then the next one, I believe it was for music. Then support. The next one, I can't exactly remember. I believe it was the search. So for this one, we can just go ahead and now copy the last one, paste it on top, and we want to change the class of bag to search. So this one will be another icon. And again, let's not forget another comment. So we can just go over here and we can grab this comment we have for from the first UL and paste it under the last one, and we can just simply just change this to larger. So now we know where it ends. So that's going to be pretty much the basic structure for the navigation itself. The next step is for us to actually create the markup for the other sections, which is going to be pretty much exactly the same. So, well, I should say the same for each section, not for the same as the header. So what I'll do here is just open up the section tag, and this one will have the class of hero as well as the class of iPhone 11. And then we can add Pro. In here, what we're going to have again is another div with the class of container. And inside of the container, I want to have a div with the class of title. Inside of the title div, I want to have an h2 with the class of title heading. And this one will just simply say iPhone 11 Pro. Then underneath, I want to have an h3 with the class of title sub heading. This one will say Pro Cameras, Pro Display, and then Pro Performance. The next one is going to be a p tag with the class of title price. And this one will say from 24.95/MO or 599 with trade-in. And then we just do the star. So now that we have that, we can go underneath of the title div and we can create a div with the class of CTA. In here, we're going to have an anchor tag with the class of CTA link. And the first one is going to say learn more. Again, we can just copy this link right here because the other one is going to be exactly the same. And we can say that this one will just say buy. So that's going to be pretty much it for the particular section. What we can do now is just copy this section altogether because remember, they're going to all be exactly the same with just some minor modifications. So we can paste it down below. And now what we have to do is just delete Pro from the section so that we only have iPhone 11. Then we can just change the heading right here to iPhone 11. And we can change what the subheading says to just the right amount of everything. And then as far as the price, we can still say that actually we have to change it. This will be $16.62, and then the price is going to be $4.99. Actually not $4.99 but $3.99. And then the rest is going to remain exactly the same. Now, as far as the next section, it's going to be slightly different. So what we can do again is just go underneath and paste it again. And as opposed to this right here, we can just get rid of it altogether and add the class of watch instead. The title heading is going to be empty because again, we will be using a background image. So what we want to do here is just modify the class to title heading dash watch. This is going to stay the same, but the message we have to change. And we also don't need the p tag here anymore. So the subheading is just simply going to say, with the new always on Retina display. And then I'll add a BR tag for a line break, and underneath I will just say that it's going to say, let me just actually type it over, and it's going to say you've never seen a watch like this. Now we can go ahead and add the modifications that I talked about. The first one is going to be right here. So we're going to scroll up a little bit, and at the first CTA link, we want to add an additional class of CTA link darker. What we want to do now is just copy this, paste it again below on the second one, as well as the one for the watch section. Something else that we have to do is add another class to the title. This will be title dark. And then we want to do the same thing for the iPhone 11 section. The reason for that is because we're going to have a light background, so we want to make sure that the text will be black. Finally, we have to scroll up a little bit to the navigation because I missed this before. And what we want to do here is just add the class of nav item hidden to the bag. And that's going to be pretty much it for the HTML markup. Now we can just go ahead to the style sheet so that we can style the website. So as usual, the first thing we're going to do is just select everything. We also want to do the before and after. Although I don't remember if I actually used them, but I guess we'll select them anyways. Margin is going to be set to 0, and the padding will be set to 0 as well. Then I will select the HTML document, and what I'll do is just give a font size of 10 pixels, followed by a font family of SF Pro Display, which is the font that Apple uses. I'll be linking this font to I'll be linking the font in the description below as well. Then what I'll do is just select all of the anchor tags, and I'll say that the display will be set to block. and the text decoration will be set to none. Then I'll select the container, and I'll give it a max width of 98 rem. Margin will be set to 0 and auto to center it left and right, and then some padding, 0 top and bottom, and 2.2 rem left and right. Then I'll select the header, and I'll give it a position of fixed and a top of 0. I want to make sure that it stays on top of everything all the time, so I'll give it a high C index of 1400. The height will be set to 4.4 rem. The background color is going to be an RGBA of 000.8. And then what I'll do here is add a backdrop filter, and it's going to be a blur of 2 rem. And that's just going to give it a blur background to the header whenever we scroll. So if we go real quick to Apple's website, it's going to be this right here. As you can see, there's some sort of blur here in the background. So that's what we're going to be applying when we use the backdrop filter. And that's going to be it for the header. So what I'll do now is select the nav list. And what I'll do here is a list style none. Then I'll do a display of flex, followed by an align items of center. And then what I'll do here is a justify content of space between. Then I'll do a margin, 0 top and bottom, and then -1 rem left and right. The next step is for me to actually give this, and I forgot something really important, which is the width of 100% on the header, because as it was before, it was only taking up the necessary space that it needed. So underneath of the nav list, what I'll do now is just select the nav list mobile. And what I want to do here is just simply hide it by giving it a display of none. Remember that we only want to show it on smaller screens. The next step is for me to actually style the links. So what I'll do next is select the nav link, and I'll say that the font size is going to be 1.4 rem. The color is going to be white, so we can do FFF. Then we can say that the padding top and bottom will be 0 and 1 rem left and right. Finally, we want to do a hover effect, so I'll do a transition on the opacity, and it's going to be over 1.5 seconds. Then we can go ahead and create the hover effect, so nav link hover, and we can say that the opacity is going to be 0.7. And now if we hover over the items, you can see that we get the nice effect. Next step is for me to actually select the nav link with the class of Apple. And what I'll do here is just simply give it a width of 1.6 rem, as well as a height of 4.4 rem. Keep in mind that this is basically the dimensions of the background image that I will be applying. Then I'll just simply say background URL, and I'm going to go into the images folder, then the icons folder, and then I want to select the Apple SVG, and I want to say center, and then no repeat. And as you can see, we now get the background image for the Apple logo. What I'll do now is exactly the same thing for the search icon. So I'll just grab this, paste it down below. And what I'll just say here is that I want to use the search icon instead. Then I can just go ahead and let's not forget to change the selector here to search. So now we get the search icon. Finally, we can paste this below one more time. And in this time, we want to select the bag. And then here, we can point to the bag.svg. The bag is going to be slightly different as far as the dimensions. So as of the width, instead, as opposed to 1.6 rem, it's going to be 1.4 rem. And that's going to be pretty much it for this section right here. The next thing that I want to do is actually select the iPhone 11 Pro section. So what I'll do here is just say iPhone 11 Pro. And I'll say that the background, actually before I do anything with the background, I have to make sure that I set a height of 69.2 rem. And I actually reverse that, it should be 69. Then it's going to have a background of, and it's going to point to the images folder, then the iPhone 11 Pro, images hero folder, and then the iPhone 11 Pro, and then I want to grab the iPhone Pro large, that JPG. Then here I want to say, actually I'll leave that for later because the way I will do things is to save time so that we don't repeat ourselves over and over. I'll be applying all the additional classes to the hero. But for now, what we'll do is just this. So we can just say that since we have some space here and it's fixed, so part of the hero here for the iPhone 11 Pro is under the navigation. What we can do here is just simply apply a margin top of the same height as the header of 4.4 rem. And that's going to push it where we need it. Then we can say that the background size will be the dimensions of the image. So as far as the width, I'll set it to auto. And then for the height, it's going to be 73.6 rem. The background position will be set to center. And I do realize that you can still do it over here in the background property, but remember that I will be doing something else differently later on. So for now, I'll do it as you see here. Then the background repeat will be set to no repeat. And something else that I want to do is apply a border top, because if you notice on Apple's website, there's a slight border right here. So what we can do is just say that border top is going to be 0.6 rem solid white, which is FFF. And then we also want to apply a border bottom, which is going to be exactly the same. So we can just go ahead and copy this and paste it down below. So now that I mentioned it, we have to keep in mind that we also want to get rid of the border for the iPhone Pro section. So as opposed to doing it right here, which we could, what I'll do instead is just grab all this right here. And since every single section is going to have the same properties and styles, we can just select the hero instead. And we can just go ahead and paste it over here. And it's going to be the exact same result except that we don't have to apply it to every single section individually. We also want to take the height and use it over here. And since this right here is underneath of the iPhone 11 Pro, it means that it's going to override the styles here. So what we want to do here is again select the iPhone 11 Pro underneath. And what we want to say is set the border top to none. And that's going to get rid of it as you see here. So now we're ready to continue. The next step for us is going to be selecting the title. So in here we can just say title, and then the color is going to be white. Then we're going to text align it to the center, followed by a padding top of 5.5 rem. Then we can select the title heading and give it a font size of 5.6 rem. We will give it a line height of 1.07143 and a letter spacing of negative 0.005 rem. Then we can just go ahead and select the subheading. What we want to do here is give it a font size as well of 2.65 rem. Then we want to give it a margin top of 0.6 rem, followed by a letter spacing of 0.008 rem. Then we can go ahead and give it a font weight of 400. The next step for us is to style the price you see right here. So we can say title price. And what we want to do now is just change the font size to 1.7 rem. The color is going to be 888. And then margin top of 0.68 rem. And as you can see, that already looks a lot better. The next step is to style the CTA and the links as well. So we can say CTA, and text align here is going to be center as well. A margin top of 1.8 rem as well. Then we can go ahead and select the CTA link and what we can do here is just give it a color of 66BBF. Then actually BBFF. We want to increase the font size to 2.1 rem. And we want to make sure that it is a display of inline block, because we don't want it to take all the space across. The next thing that I will do is just select the second one so that I can give it a margin left. So we can just do CTA link and then nth child of 2, and here we can say that the margin left will be of 2.6 rem. And now we get the separation we desire. The next thing I want to do now is give it a hover effect, which is going to be a border bottom. So CTA link, we can say hover, and we can just simply give it a border bottom of 2px, and then solid. Again, it's going to be the same color we used before of 66BBF. So just so that we can see better what's going on, let's just make it bigger. And as you can see, it already looks a lot better. The next step for us is to actually go ahead and style the next section, which is going to be the iPhone 11. So let's make sure that the hover effect works, and it does. and scroll this down just a little bit. So let's just do a comment so that we know where we are. So iPhone 11 section. Let's do the same for the previous one, which is going to be right here. And we can change it to iPhone 11 Pro. And this one right here is going to be for the header. So we can just say header. And for the one up top, we can just simply say global. This way we can keep track of what is what. Now going back to the iPhone 11 section, we're going to be doing exactly the same thing we did before. But remember, we already applied all those hero styles right here, so we don't need to do it for this particular section. So we can just select the iPhone 11. And the only thing we have to do here is just change the well, not change, but add a background image. This will be in the images folder, then hero, and then iPhone 11. And this one will be iPhone 11 large. Then what we can do next is select the title dark. Let me just make sure that I refresh this. Just having some issues here. Let me just debug it again. And I know what the issue is. It's because since the styles are up top, they're not applying to this right here in particular. So what we have to do is actually grab this portion we have right here. And what we want to do is just delete it, but we also want to keep the comment. So we can just delete this, as well as this right here. And this should have been part of the code right here. So I guess we can just like save it for later, but we can say over here, iPhone 11 Pro. And now what we want to do is just have it all the way at the end. So if we paste it over here, you'll see that now we get the image. So let me just get rid of this comment. And then let's just wrap this around a particular comment just so that we know what it does. So we can say moved to the bottom of all section styles to keep consistent styles. So in here, we can just say end. And in here, we basically just want to keep this all the way at the bottom. So the rest of the styles, we will be continuing to apply right here on top of it. So as I said, the next step now is to target the title dark, because as you can see, we can't see the heading, which is right here. What we want to do here is just basically change the color to black, so 000, and now we can see it. The next step is for us to actually target the CTA link darker, and this one is going to have a different shade of that blue, which is going to be a color of 007 and then 70, actually 0 C and then 9. We also want to make sure that we change the hover effect on the border bottom just so that the colors match. So we can just say CTA link darker, hover, the border bottom color is going to be this one right here. So now when we hover over the item here, you see that the border bottom matches the same color. Next step is for us to select the watch, which is going to be the one right here, so that we can apply the title, the background image to the title. Again, this will be pretty simple as well. So what we can do is just say title heading, watch, and then what we can say is that the height will be 7.8 rem, and the background image will be in the images folder, and then I believe it was hero watch, and then we can say watch large. Then we can say center, no repeat. And then the background size, again, it's going to be auto. And then as far as the height, it's going to be the same, which is 7.8 rem. And I also want to apply a margin top. Margin top. Of, let's say, 1.6 rem. And actually I applied the wrong image. This one should be the logo watch medium instead, as you can see here. Something else that we have to do here, which I actually should have done before. So let's just go on top of the title heading for the watch, and we can say watch, and now we can just apply the background image for the watch itself. It's going to be the same thing here, so as opposed to just typing everything, I can just like replace this, and now I can just change it to hero watch, and then I can say watch large. And now I get the background image that I want. So this is going to be pretty much it for the desktop version. And as you can see, it looks pretty good. The next step for us is to actually work on the mobile navigation to make it more responsive. So let me just make this smaller again. And we can go underneath of the styles we applied here, and we can get started with the media query. And the first one is going to be for medium screen devices. So what I'll do here is just say add media, and then screen. There's one more thing, so and I can say max width will be set at 1068 pixels. What I want to do here is just simply change the images. So for the iPhone 11 Pro, I can say background image is going to be, again, we just have to go into the images folder, hero, and then iPhone 11 Pro. And then what we want to grab is the medium image. So as you can see, we get the medium image here, but we still have to fix it. But before we actually do that, what I'll do next is just apply all the other images as well. So let me just go here, paste this below, and change it to the iPhone Pro. And then I just have to change the path to the iPhone 11, as you can see here. And then I can just get rid of Pro here as well. And now I get my other medium image. Now, I just have to grab this one. Well, I already had it in my clipboard, so I guess I should have just pasted the one I had before. And I can say the watch. And again, we want to go into the hero and then watch. And then we can say watch medium. And now we get the other image. So what I'll do now is just basically adjust the styles for the hero. So what I'll do here is select the hero. Then the height, this time, will be 65 rem. The background size will be set to auto. And then we have to make the images, the height of the image, to match their original height. So in this case, it's going to be 69.8 rem. And then background position is still going to remain at bottom center. And then background repeat, no repeat. So as you can see now, they're both, well, not both, all of them are aligned in the middle, which is exactly where we want them. We also have to reduce the headings a little bit. So we can say that the title heading is going to have a font size of 4.4 rem. Then the subheading will have a font size of 2.4 rem. What I want to do now is just reduce the margin left that the link has. So what I'll do here again is select the CTA link and then nth child 2, and what I'll say is that the margin left will be reduced to 2 rem. Then I'll go underneath and I want to switch the watch logo image to the smaller one. And that's going to be pretty simple. Again, title, heading, watch. We can say that the height is going to be 6.2 rem. And then the background image is going to be the small one. So hero, and then watch. And then we can say logo watch some. Actually, this one should have been medium. And let's not forget to adjust the height as well for the background size. So auto, and then 6.2 rem. And it's also not going to repeat. So we can do this right here. So center, no repeat. And let's just go back up to when we initially applied the heading right here, because this one should have been large, not medium. So that's what we actually wanted. So let's go back down, and that's going to be pretty much it for this media query. So let's go into the responsive view to see the changes. So as you can see here, the images are being switched to the smaller ones. And that happens at 1068. So what we can do now is just go ahead and target the next breakpoint, which is going to be at 767 pixels. So again, I want to save a little bit of time, so I'll just copy this first section of the media query and I'll just paste it down below, and then I'll just close it and change the pixel value. This one will be at 767. And this is going to be probably the longest part of the whole tutorial because we're going to be applying all of the active classes and doing a little bit of keyframes animations as well. So what we want to do in this particular breakpoint is just select the header. But before we do that, let me just actually make this smaller. And now I'll just select the header. And what I want to do here is just change the height to 4 4.8 RAM. Later on, we're going to be applying some animations. So what I'll do here is just add a transition. The transition is going to be on the background. And then it's going to be over 0.36s and then a cubic Bezier of 0.32 and 0.08. Then I'll do 0.24 and then 1. The next one is going to be for the height. And it's going to be exactly the same. So I'll just copy this right here, as well as the cubic Bezier. And I'll paste it over here, and now I just have to change this from 36 to 56. Next thing I want to do now is select the header container. So I'll select header and then the container that's inside of it. And what I want to do here is just get rid of the padding and set it to 0. Because if I don't, that's going to cause some issues right here with the spacing later on when we deal with the other navigation. Then I'll select the iPhone 11 Pro and I'll increase the margin top to the same height as the header right here to 4.8 rem. Then we can go ahead and select the nav list larger, and we want to hide it. So we'll do a display of none. And in reality, I'm doing it right now because I just want to see what the mobile navigation is going to look like. But later on, we're going to target this again, and we want to show it, but in a different way. So the next thing I want to do is just get rid of the margin that I applied later on, which was a negative 1 rem margin on the nav list. So nav list, and then I'll say that the margin will be set to 0. Then what I'll do is select the nav list mobile, and I'll give it a display of flex. Remember that earlier on, we hid the mobile version by giving it display of none. So since we want to make sure that it stays flexed, as opposed to giving it a display of block, we just want to say display of flex. Now we want to target the nav item. And what we want to do here is give it a fixed width, and it's going to be of 4.8 rem. The height is going to be 4.8 rem as well. And we also want to make sure that we give it a display of flex. The reason for that is because we want to align the items inside of it perfectly in the middle. So we can do a justify content of center. And now you see that it looks slightly better. What we want to do next is hide the other items that we don't need. Although you can't see it right now, so if I remove, for example, if I just comment this out, and then I can just comment this out as well, we get the old navigation. So what we can do here is just hide the items that we don't want. In this case, it's going to be the shopping bag on this particular navigation, as well as the logo. So we can just say nav item hidden and set the display to none. Because when we do the mobile navigation later on, when it expands, we don't want those items to show. So now I can just go back and uncomment this, as well as this. So now we can go ahead and actually create the lines. And that's going to be pretty simple. So what we can do here is first we want to select the mobile menu, and we can give it a position of relative. Again, we want to give it a high C index value just to make sure that it stays on top of everything. So in this case, I'll just do 1500. So width is going to be 100% of its parent container, which is going to be the nav item. So it's going to be this right here. And then the height 100% as well. Then I want to make sure that I give it a display of flex. And I want to do a flex direction of column, followed by align items of center, and then justify content of center. Finally, I want to give it a cursor of pointer because I want to give it the appearance that it's clickable, as you see right here. Now, the next step for us is to draw the lines. So we can say line, and it's going to be a position of absolute. And then the width will be 1.7 rem. The height will be 1 pixel. And then the background color will be set to white. So as you can see, we now have one line. We also want to apply a transition later on for the animation. So this will be on the margin top. Actually, it's going to be the transition first, and then the margin top. And it's going to be over 3192S. And then cubic Bezier of 0.04. Again, 0.04. Then 0.12, and then 0.98, actually 96. Now we can just select them individually. So I can say line top, and the margin top here will be 3 pixels, and then line bottom. And this one is going to be a margin top, but it's going to be a negative 4 pixels. We can actually just do 0.4 rem. So as you can see now, it looks a lot better. What we have to do next is add an active class. So what we want to do here is just say that when the active class is applied, we want to target the line top, and we want to say that the margin top is going to be set to 0. We want to transform, rotate the var to 45 degrees. And here we want to transition the transform. Then we can go ahead and say that it's going to be over the same period of seconds for the margin top, but this one is going to have a transition delay of 0.1 s, and the reason for that is because we don't want this to clash. So we want the margin top to transition first, and then we want this to wait, and then it can do the crossover to become an X. So basically this will move it down, and then it becomes the X. And again, the cubic Bezier is going to be the same. So we can just copy it and paste it right over here. Now we can just go ahead and grab this right here and paste it down below and change top to bottom. What we want to do here is just basically make this a negative 45 degrees. And that's going to be pretty much it for this particular bar. So what we want to do here, just to test it out, is go back and actually go into the, well, not go back, but actually go into the main.js so that we can create a click event to test out the animation. So as usual, I will create a function to select my elements. So const select element. It is going to be an arrow function. So we want to create a temporary variable of element, and then we can say document dot query selector, and here we can just pass again element. So what this is doing is basically we're going to be passing in, for example, a class or whatever it is, ID, or even a tag name, and then it's going to take it right here, and then it's going to grab that particular element so that we can use it. So what we want to do here is now call the function. So select element, and what we want to pass in is the element with the class of mobile menu. Then we want to add an event listener, and it's going to be of click. And here again, we want to create another arrow function. And then here, again, we want to call the select element function again so that we can select the next element. In this case, we want to select the header, and we want to basically add the class of active to the header. But as opposed to just adding it, I want to toggle it basically on and off, so we can say toggle active. So now whenever we click here, the header will get the class of active, which means that once the class of active is applied, everything inside of the header is going to basically have the styles you see here. So if I click it, I'm having some issues right here, so let me just reload, see what's going on. So now that just have to wait for it to reload. And as you can see now, we get the nice animation we wanted. The next step now is to actually go back into the CSS, and then we can continue to style the rest of the website. Well, not the website, but the navigation itself. So remember that we also want to make the header take up 100% of the height available. So again, let's target the header, and we want to say that when the header has the class of active, we want to create, let me just close this error, which is what caused what happened earlier when it didn't want it to reload. So what we want to do here is just say that the height will be 100%, and then the background color is going to be a solid black, so 0, 0, 0. And now let's just test it out. As you can see now, the header is expanding 100% of its height, and the background is changing. So that is working just how we want it. Now I'll target the nav link apple, and I'll say that the width is going to be 1.8 rem. The height is going to be 4.8 rem. And then I also want to transition the opacity. Transition opacity over 3 seconds. Actually, this is only for the bag, so we can just remove this. What I want to do here is give it a position of relative. And the reason for that, or I think I might have given it to it before, so let me just double check that I'm not making a mistake. So nav link apple, let me see if I can find it. Nav link it, oh no, I didn't do it, so let's just do it right now. So a position of relative, and then a C index of 1500 again. The reason for that is because once it opens up, I want to make sure that the Apple logo is going to stay on top of everything else, as well as the menu we have right here. So underneath, I want to select the nav link bag, and this one will have a width of 1.6 rem, a height of 4.8 rem, and here I want to transition the opacity as I mentioned before. because I want to make sure that I hide this. So once we take care of that, what we have to do now is select the nav. So the nav will have a position of relative. Then I'll select the nav link and I'll change the font size to 1.7 rem, and then the padding will be set to 0, and then the margin here we're going to be centering it right in the middle of the container, which is going to be the li. So what we can do is just set the margin to auto, top and bottom, and then 0 left and right, although it's already centered, so we don't have to worry about it for now. But we have to do it just to make sure that whenever we do open the other navigation, everything is going to stay in the middle, top and bottom, which we will see later on when we style that particular portion. So after the nav link, what we have to do next is select the nav list larger. Remember, we hit it before, but now we want to make sure that we show it. So let's not forget that we have to go back and delete the styles that we applied here. Nav list. Where is it? Right here when we close this. So now we actually want to display it, so we can just get rid of it now. So let's go back down. And then here, what we want to do is just set the position to fixed. The top will be set to 0. Then the left will be 0 as well. Then we want to make sure that the width is set to 0. The height will be set to 0 as well. And then display will be set to block. Actually, just so that we can see better what we're doing, I'll make sure that I keep this visible as it is for now. So after we do that, I want to make sure I also give it a padding of, let's say, 10.5 rem. And this is going to be top and bottom, and then 5 rem left and right. After I do that, I'll give it a C index of 1000. And then I want to say that the box sizing will be set to border box. And what I want to transition here is the opacity, and it's going to be over 3.3 seconds. So what I want to do now is basically create an active state. So what I'll do here is say that the nav list, actually I want to say active nav list larger will have a width of 100% and then a height of 100 of the viewport height, and the opacity will be set to 1. So what we want to do next is select the active state for the bag. So nav link bag, and here we can just simply say that the opacity will be set to, I believe it was 0. And then we also want to add another transition on the opacity, and it's going to be over 3.3 seconds as well. So now if we click on it, you'll see that it's going to come in and then it's going to hide. So the bag is hidden and now it's showing. But we still have the issue right here that we have to get rid of this. But for now, just so that we can see what we're doing, we're going to keep it. So we're going to go underneath and we want to target the nav list larger nav item. This is where we want to apply. Actually, let me just keep it triggered so that we can see the other styles that we're going to be applying. So nav list larger, and then we can say that the nav item is going to have a width of 100%. And then we can say that the content is going to be justified content, flex start, so it's going to be moved back to the start right here. And then the border bottom is going to be 2 pixels solid RGBA of 255, 255, 255, and then 0.1. So now we get the nice border. Then we can just go down here. And the next step is for us to actually select the last one so that we can get rid of the border right here. So that's going to be pretty simple. We can just grab this right here. And we can say that the nth child, number 9, and then set the border bottom to none. As you can see, it's now gone. One thing we have to do now is just apply the animation. We get the fade. So what we can do now is just create a keyframe animation. So we can say add keyframes, and this is going to be pretty simple. This is going to be fade in, and I'll say from, I'll say opacity, which is basically from the start, this is basically 0%. I want it to be a 0, and then 2, it's going to be opacity of 1. So this is basically the same as saying 0% and then 2, 100%. And that's going to be pretty much it for the keyframe animation. Now we just have to apply it, so let's go up top, and we can select again an active state right here, and then nav list larger, and we can say that the nav item, and then animation, it's going to be fade in, and then it's going to be 1 second, and then ease in. So now if we can just keep clicking it, you'll see that it fades in nicely. So now the only thing we have to do is just hide this. So let's go back up here. So nav list. Actually, where are you? Right here. So display block. Let me see where I messed up. Opacity 0. Opacity, where are you? Opacity. I didn't apply the opacity, so that's why it's not. So now that it's gone, you can see it right over here. And it's actually visible still, like even though you can't see it, like you can still hover them, as you can see here now. So what I would like to do next is just set the visibility to hidden. And then right here, we can just say that the visibility will be visible. So as you can see now, even if we hover over the navigation items, it's no longer there. And then when we click on the navigation, we get the nice animation, as well as right here when it fades in. So the next step is for us to actually create the last media query. And that's going to be pretty much the same thing we did before, except that we're going to make some of the headings a little bit more smaller, and we want to change the images as well. So again, what we want to do is just go ahead and grab the first line of the media query. If you want, you can feel free to just like copy it, well, type it in manually, but in my case, I'll just go ahead and copy this and paste it down below. And then it's going to be set at 735 pixels. So since we did it before, let's just be the lazy developer. And as opposed to just basically copying everything manually, well, not copying it, but typing everything manually, we can just go ahead and copy this and paste it down below. And what we want to do here is just switch the images to the small one. So let's actually make sure that we don't have any other extra tag. we want to do the same thing here. Small, F11 small, and then the same thing for the watch. Let's not forget that we also have to repeat the same styles we had before. Since the images now have different dimensions, we can just go ahead and grab the styles that we applied to the hero. And what we want to do here is just go underneath and paste it down below. And the only thing we have to do now is just switch the height, which is going to be set to 50 rem. And then the background size will be set to 54.8 rem. So the only thing left to do is just reduce the size to the headings as well as the other stuff we have over here, as I mentioned, and everything is going to be all set. So let's just select the title. So title, we only write you right here. We want to say the padding top is going to be set to 3.7 rem. Then what we want to say is the title heading is going to have a font size of 3.2 rem. Now I'll select the subheading, and what I'll do here is just give it a font size of 1.9 rem. Then I can go ahead and select the title watch, and what I'll do here is just give it a margin top of -5 rem. Actually, should be -0.5 rem, and a margin bottom of 0. After I do that, the next thing is to select the title price, and what I'll do here is again select the font size and say 1.4 rem. Then I'll say that the CTA will have a margin top, and it's going to be of 0.7 rem. Finally, we can select the CTA length, and we can say that the font size will be set to 1.9 rem. And yeah, this is going to be pretty much it for this tutorial, guys. So again, if we go into the desktop version of it, you'll see that everything came out pretty good. If we go inspect it, and then we go into the responsive view, you'll see that everything will keep adapting as I make the screen smaller, and then we also get the nice animation right here. And then let me just check what the errors are. So failed to load resource, that's just for the images, so that's not really a big deal. But yeah, as I mentioned, this is going to be pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed it and maybe you learned something new. Again, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and turning on bell notifications. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below. I'm always hanging around there. And yeah, if you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the next one.